Happy Valentine's month, everybody. I'm the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to share with you some of my favorite Valentine's Day episodes from TV shows or even movies. Not everything is all lovey-dovey. Sometimes Valentine's Days deal with heartache and everything. So, some episodes will be romantic and lovey-dovey, while others will be very sad and heart-wrenching and stuff. But love is love. It doesn't always come with smiles and giggles and glee. So, I'm here today to talk to you about Nowhere Man, episode 11, The Enemy Within. I've actually never talked about this show yet on my channel. Well, actually, I kind of have. Last year, I recorded a bunch of videos that I haven't even made yet because the holidays came around. And back when I was doing the 4 Hours of Hollywood back in early January of last year, I talked briefly about Nowhere Man. How it's basically a ripoff of The Net, the movie The Net. And later on, The Net had a TV show. And so I talked briefly a little bit about it. I used to watch this show back when it came on UPN back in the 90s. The UPN is now the CW because they merged with WB. And this was a very interesting show. It only lasted sadly for 1 season, mainly because a lot of UPN shows struggle. The problem with this show is it didn't never really know what it wanted to be. It was trying to compete against the ever-growing change of the mid-late 90s. Everything's were changing. Things were getting less cheesier, more sci-fi-ish, more adventurous, stuff like that. And this show tried to compete with all that. It tried to compete with X-Files, to where it had an X-File alien type show. So basically, like I said before, if you ever heard The Net, Sandra Bullock is about, basically, just to give you a quick rundown, this man named Thomas Vale. He was a photographer. He went out somewhere in another country, saw some stuff he should never saw with some military stuff, took a picture and displayed it. The government, this organization, government type place found out. They didn't like that and they erased his entire existence. Now he travels around the country trying to regain his identity and trying to stop the people who took it from him. And it's it's weird. His wife, she doesn't even remember who he is. Whether or not she was forced to not remember, if she was drugged not to remember, or if she was working for the people, it's very complicated. His mom suffers from dementia, so she don't really remember who he is. His dad, I think he thought his dad was dead, but then he finds his dad in one episode. And so it's so many people who he worked. It's just like The Net, people who he worked with. Oh, we don't know you and stuff. Name, white from Social Security, everything. I will talk more about this later. I do want to talk about this show, but this is not the time. It's just about a Valentine's Day type episode. So The Enemy Within. So he travels the country, right? And he just walks everywhere he has to go. Sometimes he hitches a ride, and now he's somewhere out in the country, farmland. Very hick country, old school 90s. Remember, this would be a time before the internet was the way it was. No social media. People didn't carry cell phones. So he ends up in this one town, farmland. Oh, by the way, years ago, this show ended up on DVD. They finally released it, but somebody uploaded it many, many years ago on YouTube. So every episode is there. And this old, grainy, television, recorded kind of way. And so I will do the rundown review of this. I do plan on also talking about the pilot episode, maybe a couple episodes that were my favorite. Boy, when I get into the rundown review, if you don't watch this show now and get to the ending, and once I get to the rundown review, the show ended on a cliffhanger. I did not see this twist coming whatsoever. I was like, whoa. So I have some opinions about that. So anyway, back to this episode. He's in a farmland type place, and so like he is looking to make a call to this guy who works in the military who might have some information on this organization that erased him, and hopefully he can get his life back. But he doesn't have a cell phone because this wasn't around that time. A lot of people carried cell phones. A lot of people just didn't have them. So he goes to like an old mom and pop shop, grocery store. Yeah, them things used to exist. And so, it's your typical dude with a mustache and glasses at the front cash register and everything. Now, the town has been had a huge blackout, 2 weeks now. And so the payphone doesn't work. Yeah, payphones. Talking about them days. But so he uses the other phone, the electric phone, to the that won't make no sense. If all the power is out, then how the world is making an electric phone that's working? And so anyway, he calls the dude, and the dude is kind of like acting a little shifty. Doesn't really want to talk to him because he doesn't want to get involved in this organization. But they talk anyway, and talking about how like it's like really really important and stuff. So he tells him, all right, fine. When he gets some information, he'll call him back on this number, the grocery store number. So every day he comes back, like, and checks to see if anybody called. And so Thomasville is the dude's name. And so he asks him straight up, is there any place like, I can find work? And he's all like, no, the farmers here struggle, and they can't get no work done. So he said the only place you can get work is a place called Collector's Food. It's like this new factory that just opened up. And he told him plain and simple, if you go work there, you ain't come back in this store. Because, of course, this new business is putting everybody out of business. The farm people, him. Think of it like this. Mom and pop grocery stores, where are they now? Non-existent. Why? Walmart. Walmart bought all those like places up, built their like super centers, and then they hired some of those mom and pop people to work where exactly? Cash register line and the people who greet folks. But most of them took the buyout and just stayed home and collected the money and stuff. There's probably a few somewhere out there, like out west, but it'll be hard to find. So, since he doesn't have money and all this stuff, most of the times this is what he does. He either stays at a motel or he camps outside. So that's what he's going to do. For some bizarre reason, he decided to camp near the collective food place. Well, for some odd reason, there's a dude who comes out with a rifle at the collective food place. He has to take watch and everything. And so, being like an idiot, he just shoots the first thing he sees in here, which happens to be Tom. He sees that, crap, I shot a person, so he hightails it. And so, Tom is now left for dead. The morning comes, and there's a woman on horseback with the dog, and the dog noticed Tom's limp, dying body. And so, this woman is named Emily. And she sees Tom and she freaks out. She don't know what to do. So she makes like a little gurney stretcher out of like twigs and branches. And she takes him back to her farmhouse. She puts a little like, she tries to tend to his wounds, but she don't know what the world she's doing. So she tells him as he's unconscious, she's going to take her truck and go into town and get some help. Now, one would think, why not put him in the truck and just go to the hospital? Well, the next scene explains why she can't do that. So this doctor man who lives in town, he sees the Tom's wounds and he heals them, give him medication. He tells her she wanted to take him to the hospital the next day. He's like, you can't do that because he'll end up dead. Because if you move him, like he's too hurt. And not only that, but the traffic's all backed up. It'll take you too long to get into the next city. And by that time, he'll be dead. So she's going to take care of him. And of course, what happens? The Nightingale effect. She ends up falling for him. We see scenes of her attending to her farm, looking up at the window, waiting for him to wake up. She buys him things like underwear and stuff like that for him to wear. And, and they have a scene where she's taking a bath for some bizarre reason. I don't understand that. Remember the movie Easy A? when they was talking about that one. Oh God, what is it called? I forgot what it's called. It's that movie where Salem witch trials and they accuse people of being witches and the person wore like a A on their shirt. That book that turned into a movie, the one with Demi Moore, where she's always taking a bath. This is how this is, for some bizarre reason, just taking a bath and stuff. Oh man. And so she's just taking a bath for some reason. And so since there's no power, there's candlelights everywhere, reading the book. At some point in time, he does finally wake up, wanting to know where he's at and who this woman is. And she tells him, pretty much this is my house, and I ask questions. Like, she's one of those type and stuff. Now she lives on the farm. She does everything by herself, and so like she's a working woman. I think I told y'all her name, Emily. So anyway, after she attends to like him and everything and helps feed him, and he asks like, what all did you do to me when you were taking care of me? She's like, well, everything you expect. So basically, I guess she gave him like a sponge bath and stuff like that too. Oh, by the way, Thomas Vale, I never mentioned this yet. He's played by Bruce Greenwood. You know Bruce Greenwood, like a famous actor. He voiced Batman and Under the Red Hood and Young Justice. He was Captain Pike in the JJ Star Trek movies. He played a president in two completely different movies. One was National Treasure. The dude's like a famous actor. And so like um so he's all like a couple of weeks now, he's back to like, stand on his own and all that good stuff. And well, there's trouble afoot. And so some guys come from Collective Foods wanting to buy her farm. And they tell her, just best you give us your farm for there be some trouble and all this other stuff. When Tom hears that, he takes her rifle and walks outside with it. So like, there's gonna be a problem and stuff like that. So he's there. See, his thing in the series is that like, it's your typical 90s series, right? A wanderer travels the land helping people. That's how this series is. But he's also here to help himself. He needs to know who he is. Think of the 90s show 2. I'll get into that one day too. Hey, that rhymes. Oh, better yet, think of it like this: Hercules and Xena. Remember how they wandered the world and saved folks? It's kind of like that. So, anyways, basically the dudes are all like, you got 30 days, or we're gonna take you to court and prove that you're standing in the way of progress. Does that actually work? I don't know, man. But anyways, stuff like that worked. It must have been like the old days in the 90s and stuff, and before that. But anyway, so she tells him how this, like I told you before, the food corporation, they're trying to take everything, every farmland in town, which is basically everything. And so, like, in mom and pop shops and stuff like that, they are ruthless. But for the most part, you don't really see them no more. And also that dog that found him, you don't see that no more either. So anyways, there's a town meeting. They're gonna discuss the whole, should they sell, should they not. Townspeople are divided. Um, there's so many of them talking about how they don't want to sell their farmland because this is their heritage and stuff like that, and legacy. And other people are all like, well, they'll give us good money and they're gonna take it anyway, and might as well sell now and cooperate and everything like that. So there's a huge discussion. There's a huge like argument between her. She tells like this one dude, we can't sell. We have to keep this. This is our family lands and stuff like that. And he reveals something about her. He reveals that like, you left 10 years ago. Your mom and dad struggled to keep ends meet and you were gone. And so we'll get into that a little bit later. And so basically, her and Tom are slowly starting to fall for each other. He wants to help, but there's nothing he can do. Like, he doesn't have no money, he doesn't have no lawyer experience, nothing like that. And so, but they are slowly falling for each other to the point where she kisses him, but then she stops herself and thinks that that's wrong because she doesn't know this man. But she did spy on him when he was unconscious. She saw the negatives of the pictures. Yes, back in the day when you took a picture, there was negatives, not just like a little card that you put in the camera and stuff. And so the negatives, of course, have all the strange stuff that he saw out there in that jungle where the military people were like torturing these people and stuff and killing folks. And She asks him all about that, but he doesn't really go into detail because she ain't gonna believe him anyway. But it's so complicated. So basically, she tells like they have an argument at one point because even though she started, because the thing is, she hasn't had a man in a very long time, and she wants to just now settle down. And she explains to him that like after they do it and stuff that she left to go to Alaska, live her life in her early 20s. Her parents tried looking for her, couldn't find her. She gets a call from like a cop saying that like her parents had both died. She had to come back and bury them. And she tried to sell the farm, but it was too much in debt. So now she's stuck there paying off the debt. And the thing that she tried to get rid of, now she's trying to keep. And she just wants to settle down. She wants to settle down with Tom. He's about 6 years older than her. And just saying. And so like she tells him she doesn't care about his past. He tells about like how it's complicated and the people like erased him and everything. He wants to get his life back. And she's all like, look, these people are probably never gonna find you here. You're out in the middle of nowhere. Stay with me, be with me, and just forget your past and move on. Like he tells her about like his ex-wife and all this other stuff, and they just argue big time over that because he is still going in town, seeing if that man called and stuff, and that really irritates her. Well, one day they plan on going out of town for a week. And so, like, in that week, they're gonna talk to like a lawyer in a different town. So they go to the store to get some supplies. And so when they leave, don't you know it, boom, the dude calls. So the cash register dude gives him like the note and tells him about it. She has a very distraught look on her face. He now has a choice. Is he going to be with her, stay with her, or he gonna go back into that store and talk to that man on the phone and stuff? Because she is basically giving him an ultimatum. All we see is the view of her, and we hear a door close. Tom went inside to go talk to the person on the phone. She waits for like a couple of minutes, but then decides, you know what, she ain't gonna do this. So she crawls over slowly into like the driver's seat. She tosses his bag on the ground and she drives off. And we see the next scene of him walking on a bridge. Like not a bridge, but like train tracks. That's on like a bridge train tracks, and he's narrating himself. That's how he starts and ends every episode, narrating. It's very sad just to see him walking the lonely road by himself. He just couldn't do it. He wants to be with her. He likes her. He would love to settle down. But more importantly, he needs to be himself. He needs his life back. He was a photographer. He was married. These people took everything for him. He is a nomad roaming the earth, like identity like lists, you know what I'm saying? Nobody seems to remember who he is, even when he runs into old colleagues because they have gotten to him. And you see people, they use psychological drugs to make people forget. They force you to forget. They do all kind of different things, and it's just like he wants to expose these people because they've done it to other people. But the thing is, here's the weird twist with the show that gets a little complicated. People he meet that they say that they have done that, that they've gone through that program where they've been erased. He doesn't know if he can trust them or not because there have been episodes where you think they're telling the truth that they've been erased by this company, only to find out that they have not. They're a little nutty in the head and all this other stuff. And then he does meet people in that organization, and once they can't get things through, they end up, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, even when he meets a dude from his old past, dude don't stay alive that long because they get to him. And so he's a one man on a mission. And sadly, falling in love and settling down just isn't in his playbook right now, you know, and it was just really sad. And when you see that scene of him just walking that lonely like train track road, it's very majestic in a way, you know what I'm saying? And just sad and just almost depressing and stuff. It's just this dude is never gonna be happy in life until he does the unthinkable. And it takes about 20 episodes for him to find out something really crazy and shocking at the very last episode. As for Emily, I feel real like sad for her as well, because like she's this strong, determined woman who works extremely hard. She works on a giant farm all by herself, and she's struggling to make ends meet. Barely can like make money. And it's like, she ain't been with a man in a long time. She didn't go around just like messing around with him when he was unconscious. And when he did wake up, it ain't like they slept together as soon as possible. They didn't sleep together until towards the end of the episode. And it's just like, she had this man in her life that wasn't no person in town. All the people in town are pretty much with other people. They're older. Um, Nobody really her age, or if they are, she can't get along with them. In comes a stranger who's like, and she just started having like these old fuzzy like feelings and stuff, and she could not stop thinking about him when he was unconscious and stuff. Like, who is this man? What life did he lead? Like, she even asked him, like, she wants to know everything about him, because he didn't tell her everything. He just said, these people took stuff from him and he can't get his life back and stuff like that. He's just this giant like enigma to her and stuff, and she finds that very fascinating because she's falling in love too fast, too hard and stuff. Like that first time she kissed him, she stopped that. And she's just like, what the world am I doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, I barely know this man. Then the second time they kissed, it was more romantic and stuff. And then, of course, they slept together off screen. Now, as for this episode, I wish they would have had more stuff of the corporate business trying to take the land. Even like it would have been nice to see them try to take it by force. Just they had like a little action in this episode, but there was no action in it. It was basically just like a somber, filler, romantic type story and stuff. So it would have been nice to have a little bit more conflict because the whole them taking over the farmland that kept getting brought up over and over and over. The discussion was nice. Like, even though there was no action, that dialogue exchange between her and that man arguing with each other, that was nice tension and stuff. And then we find out off screen towards the end, he sold to the company. So the food company decided, hey, we're gonna make the town like us. They got the power back on in town. Now that makes you wonder, how did the power turn off? You know what I'm saying? And was it them that did it in the first place just to make the people like them? But now since they gave the people power again and people are like, well, they can't be that bad. Then there's the whole question of why were there armed civilians working for them at night in the woods and stuff? So since they had all that intriguing stuff, nothing went with it. So that was kind of depressing. Now, wasn't that romantic? Or depressing, depending on what kind of video I just talked about. Okay, well, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And bye.